Hey guys, I'm E. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a sports videographer who's worked on many big projects, including some for the NBA. And in this video, not only am I going to show you how easy it is to achieve a perfectly smooth speed ramping effect in Premiere Pro, but I'm also going to talk to you guys about my personal way of using speed ramping in my content from a creative perspective. So in case you're still not quite sure exactly what speed ramping is, it's basically when you take a clip that's playing at normal speed and then you suddenly ramp it down to super slow-mo, or you do the opposite where you take slow motion action and then ramp it up and then ramp it back down. It's basically remapping the speed of a clip. So if you've never done it before, don't worry, it's a very easy thing to learn. It's literally going to take me about 90 seconds to explain. And if you have used speed ramping before and you think you know all about it, I still encourage you to stick around because in only 90 seconds, I'm already going to be moving on to the next topic, which is how to use it properly. And by that, I mean, when should it be super quick? When should it be long and smooth? And more importantly, how much speed ramping is way too much speed ramping? Because yes, there is such a thing, even in sport. But anyway, for now, let's jump into Premiere Pro and learn how to execute a perfectly smooth speed ramping effect. So with this clip, my goal is to slow the footage way down to 25% of the original speed just by the time Ben Simmons is scoring that layup. And then ramp it back up to normal speed just as he reappears from behind the defenders. So to do that, the first thing you want to do is expand the track that we're working on because we're going to be using keyframes and it's a lot easier to see what you're doing and do everything properly when you have a bit of real estate to work with. Next, you want to right click on the effects icon of your clip, select time remapping and then speed. Now we're going to find the exact moment in our clip where we want to start the first speed ramping effect, then select the pen tool and add a keyframe. The keyframe's a bit off, but don't worry about it because we're going to fine-tune it later on anyway when tracking it to the music. For now, because I want to go from normal speed to super slow-mo, I will first of all go back to using the selection tool, then grab the horizontal line on the right side of my keyframe and bring it all the way down to 25%. And because in this particular case my goal is to make an instantaneous speed ramping transition on the beat of the music, we are actually done. So let's move on to the next one, which will be much slower and more natural looking. Same thing here to start with. Once I find the beginning point, which will be right after the ball goes through the hoop, I use my pen tool again to add my keyframe. Then go back to using the selection tool, and this time I bring the line on the right side of my keyframe all the way back up to 100%. As you can see, it looks quite unnatural, so we're gonna try to smooth things out. You'll notice that there's two separate sides in my keyframe, so I'm gonna grab the right side and drag it about a second further down on my timeline. That will obviously make the transition longer, but to make it even smoother, I'm going to grab that little handlebar here, turn it to the right, and you can see now how the ramp looks much smoother. In theory anyway. And if we look at the final product, it's much smoother as well. See, I told you it was going to be easy, but keep in mind though, just because speed ramping is easy, it doesn't mean that you can just do it willy-nilly with any clip. For example, in my case, I was using a clip film in 120 frames per second, and I was able to slow it down to 25% of the original speed because I was using a 30 frames per second sequence. Now, if that is very confusing to you, I strongly suggest that you watch one of my previous videos where I fully explain how to shoot and edit specifically for slow motion. So now, last thing before I go, let's just discuss a little bit the creative process behind speed ramping. As I mentioned earlier, I typically try to keep my speed ramping extremely short when I'm doing it on the beat of the music track. Actually, I typically just make a cut on the beat and just make the next clip 25 or 50%. I don't even bother going with keyframes and everything because I really want the beat to dictate what happens in my footage, so there's no real need to speed ramp per se. But if I'm not using the musical beat to pinpoint the speed changes, then I will definitely stretch the speed ramping effect to make it as smooth as possible. The idea is to make whatever movement is going on at that time in my footage as natural looking as I can. So now let's assume that you've got all this 60 and 120 frames per second footage that you're about to put into this epic hype reel that you're about to edit, and you want to know how much speed ramping you should be doing. The way I go about this is that I basically identify the key moments in my video, the moments that are like the biggest plays, the one that I really want to push to the fullest, that are gonna make, they're gonna give people goosebumps, they're gonna make them jump out of their seats. There's usually, in a 90 seconds to 2-minute video, there's probably not going to be much more than 4 or 5 of those moments, and that's where I want to go all out with speed ramping. For everything else, you can definitely use slow motion as well, but just keep it consistent. Like for example, in your intro, if it's like a slow build, then yeah, just stick to slow motion, but don't go sort of up and down. Just keep those speed ramping effects for the moments where you really want to catch people's attention, and then they can just go back into normality for a few seconds. But at the end of the day, as I always say, first of all, variety is the key. And second of all, you need the lows to appreciate the highs, which means that if you've got speed ramping going the whole way through your video, about 35 seconds in, I'm gonna sort of get annoyed by it, 1, and 2, it's just gonna become normal and not that impressive anymore. So when you use it once, you have to give me, as the viewer, a few seconds to sort of forget about it, so that when you bring it back, then the impact is just as strong as it was the first time. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful, and as I mentioned earlier, if you want to learn more about slow motion, how to film it, how to edit it, how to export it, make sure you watch the video on your screen right now. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. My name is E, and I hope I earned the privilege of your time.